Hi, we're here for another review, and this time I'm going to be reviewing a YouTube video. It's a series by Dr Sunday Adelaja on analytical thinking. So I'll read a little bit about Sunday Adelaja so you know who he is. He's popularly known as DSA. So he's a founder and the senior pastor of the Embassy of God Church in Kyiv, Ukraine. So unfortunately, there's a war in Ukraine and lots of people have lost their lives and they've been displaced. Unfortunately, DSA has had to relocate because of the war. So our hearts go out to the people of Ukraine and Dr. Sunday Adelaja as well. Sunday Adelaja is a Christian preacher. However, this is not a Christian review. I'm just reviewing it because I do like some of his teachings. He has a whole load of series on his YouTube page, which I think is DSA Official. And I've particularly found the thinking series quite helpful. And I will explain why. I'll be sharing 6 out of his 8 principles. If you want to see the full list of 8, definitely go onto his page so you can have a look at it. And I'll be scoring this a 10 out of 10 because I found it quite useful. I think he has a way of breaking down relatively complex terms to kind of aid your understanding. So if you completed a master's program or done a research program, you probably be familiar with the words like ontology, axiology, epistemology. I'll define what they are. I've just popped them there. So ontology is the nature of reality and of what really exists. It's the study of existence and its nature. Epistemology is the relationship between the knower and what is known, study of the nature of origin, the limits of human knowledge, and axiology is the study of values and judgments. And I think the combination of all 3 of these have an influence in how you think. It kind of helps frame how you think, how you judge what is reality, how you interpret your own reality. I find how DSA breaks it down is quite interesting because he kind of gives a slightly different spin and he uses simple examples to explain often complex theories. So let me run through DSA's 6 principles, the ones I'll be sharing with you. So he says that thinking must have a purpose. All thinking is an attempt to answer a question. All thinking is based on assumptions. All thinking has a viewpoint. All thinking must have an inference. All thinking has implications. But before I go into talking about, Sunday Adelaja's principles, I think another tool that is quite useful when you're talking about critical thinking is learning the logical fallacies. I think this is really important because it helps you understand a person's position in an argument, and it helps you think so that you can ask suitable questions and challenge viewpoints. So in my household, for example, the bandwagon fallacy is very popular because my daughter tells me how every household in the UK has an OMG doll. And it's really important for everyone to have an OMG doll, unless we'll be left out. So she's kind of jumped on that bandwagon and telling me how important it is. But I'm sure if we don't have OMG dolls, I'm sure that we'll wake up tomorrow, the sun will shine, and we'll be okay. But that's an example of logical fallacies. But it just helps you be clear when someone is trying to put over your eyes, and you'll be able to defend yourself in an argument or, win 1 or 2 arguments using logical fallacies if you were so inclined. But let's go back to DSA. So I've gone through the 6 principles that I'm going to be talking about. But what I find is helpful if you have an example to kind of illustrate the point you're trying to reach. So I'm going to read through my example or my scenario, and then we will apply Sunday Adelaja's 6 principles. Okay, so this is the scenario. A sheep walks up to a little girl and her brother and tells them not to go into the woods until 7 p.m. as there is a wolf that lives there. And the wolf will be taking a nap around 7 p.m, so it will be safe for them to venture into the woods around that time. Unbeknownst to them, the sheep is actually the wolf dressed in sheep's clothing. He's just had some breakfast and he's full and he's thinking about his dinner. So his suggestion for the children to return at 7 p.m. is so that he would be able to gobble them up for his dinner, and he's just pacing himself. The advice was, don't go into the woods now, go into the woods around 7 p.m. when the wolf will be taking a nap. The wolf now, being that he's got a full stomach, he's decided to have a little nap and wait until 7 p.m., at which time he will venture into the woods and hopefully the children will be there and he can eat them up for his dinner. Luckily, the little girl has a brother and he is an analytical thinker and he uses questions to help him understand the world. So the question he's asking himself now is, should I trust the sheep? And he questions himself using questions starting with the words why, what, where, when, and how. Now that I set the scene, let's go into the scenario. DSA's first principle is that thinking must have a purpose. So in our case, the purpose is, should the children trust the wolf? So the questioning would be, who is the wolf? Why is he telling them this information? What does he hope to gain? Where did he come from? So in this instance, the purpose is to know whether or not the children can trust the wolf and whether or not they can rely on the information that he's just imparted to them. So the next principle is all thinking is an attempt to answer a question. What is the sheep hoping to gain? Where did this sheep come from? Where did this sheep get this vital information to share with us? So those are examples of some of the questions that you can frame in order for you to answer the objective of the thinking process in the first instance. Thinking is based on assumptions. So initially the children's assumptions is that the sheep is a friendly sheep, perhaps trying to help them out. But the truth is he's not a sheep, he's actually a wolf. And the children don't know that. So if they were to assume that it was a sheep, then perhaps they would be less cautious and perhaps they would be more inclined to take the advice that the wolf has given them. So you do need to question your assumptions, because if they knew it wasn't a sheep, they wouldn't have hesitated. They would have probably run away straight away. But because the assumption was it was a sheep, so perhaps that's why they listened. All thinking is based on assumption. So when you're in a situation and you are trying to frame your thought process, you need to be clear on what assumptions you're making in answering questions or in thinking things through. So all thinking has a viewpoint. So for the children, their viewpoint is to stay safe. And for the wolf, his viewpoint is he wants his dinner. So all thinking should have a viewpoint and you need to be aware of that. So the next one is all thinking must have inferences. So inferences means a basis. An inference can be a conclusion reached based on evidence. So the evidence before the children is that it is a sheep. They're making the assumption that he's looking out for their best interest, but they do need to question that because, as we can clearly see, it's not a sheep but a wolf. So all thinking has implications. So if the children follow the advice of the wolf, they would have returned at 7 p.m. and they would have been the wolf's dinner. However, thanks to the brother, he's thought through the process and he's asked those questions. He's not altogether convinced with information that the wolf has given him, so the children wander into the woods early while the wolf is taking a nap, and in that case they're saved, and the brave woodcutter comes and he chops the wolf up, and that's the end of the wolf. So in this case, the wolf doesn't get his dinner, he misses out. The children wander into the woods a bit earlier, and then a brave woodcutter comes and saves the day. You know how the fairy tales go. Those are some of Sunday Adelaja's principles. I find them useful, as I said. He's got 8, but I've just given you 6. Definitely go onto his webpage and you can see the rest of them. I think the emphasis is ask questions. Ask those questions, probe, check things, check facts, make sure things are not logical fallacies. I think the one that people often fall for, especially on adverts, I don't know if I've got it on my list, is the appeal to authority. Let me see if I've got it on my list. Oh yeah. The appeal to the authority, where they go 5 out of 6 opticians, suggest you should use this eyeglass, or someone comes up and goes, I am a doctor and I've been a doctor for 20 years and I recommend you use this product. So in those cases, that's an appeal to authority. or where you go, oh, I've been in this business for 50 years. I know everything there is to know about the business. That's another example of appeal to authority. So in order for you to think critically, it helps if you go through the fallacies so that you understand them. And also if you apply DSA's principles, as this helps set yourself up to think critically by asking questions and by probing. So thank you for watching this review. And if you've enjoyed it, I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.